artists of all kinds.
Sit down, relax, enjoy the music.
Oh, okay, nice, your turn.
Welcome everyone. This is the most people I've had in the podcast studio at one time. It's pretty cool to have a decent number of you. Hopefully we're going to have a good chat and bounce off each other. Now, introduce yourselves, because I don't actually know how to pronounce the name of the band and I didn't want to get it wrong. So let's start off with that. Let's start off with the name and where it came from and how you guys, I guess, came to be.
Well, we're in Porpoise.
It is Porpoise. Okay,
yes.
Cool. I had that in my mind. I was like, I want to make sure before I go belting it out.
Yeah, it's surprising the amount of people that actually don't know how to say our band name, to be honest. We hear Porpoise a bit.
I admittedly have said that.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was that, but I wasn't sure.
Well,
It's named after the typist notation.
Just the minus one, down to like 2. Sorry, I forgot to do that before we started. The noisy fans going off. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much. Cool. So where did the name come from? How did you guys come up with the name?
We spent a long time looking at names, like looking for names. And I think in the end we found the best way to find a name was to go through all of our saved albums on Spotify.
Oh, yeah.
And individually check out every single song name.
yeah.
So have you guys already been sort of a collective before you are the band that you are now? Like who's sort of the original people? Because you say like previous albums, like you guys, have you two sort of done work
Oh,
together?
not our previous albums.
Oh, I see,
I
The
see.
saved albums.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm with you. I understand.
But me and Lucy were a band beforehand.
Oh, yeah.
So we were in a band called the Rhododendrons.
Oh, yes.
And then we split up. Like we just didn't.
Yeah, just what we wanted to do musically was quite different for both of us. They kind of wanted to make more like, I don't know, I guess.
Poppy stuff.
Yeah, probably
Sure.
folky. Like they didn't like all the long, slow songs we
Yeah,
were
yeah.
like wanting to write.
like
So yeah, so we just went our separate ways and
Yeah.
formed this band instead.
That's cool. That's cool that you could at least, I guess, come to an agreement or a point where you guys are like, we're not on the same page here. Like, was it sort of a mutual agreement or was it?
It was hard. We
Yeah.
had Tom come in for some secret jams at one point.
Oh, no.
But it's all it's
Yeah,
fine
it's
now.
fine
I'm
now.
playing. They're still the Rhododendrons. I'm playing a gig in one of my other bands.
Cool.
With them soon.
Yeah.
And
Sweet.
stuff's fine.
We got them to
That's good to
open for
hear.
us at the start of the year at another gig.
Oh, cool.
So we thought
And it
would
was
be
great.
fun.
Level the playing field a bit.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. So you've started Porpoise. How did that start? Like, who was the idea? It was started with you two, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how did you branch out? How did you start finding the sound? And I guess when did you develop the other band members? Was it just a matter of sort of putting the word out there or?
I guess it was just Joel and I, eventually, because I used to be in a band before the Rhododendrons, which was called Soy Milk. So originally the Rhododendrons kind of formed to be a continuation of that
Oh, okay.
band, which was we kind of made indie pop punk
Yeah.
music. So I guess we kind of started off not sure what to do. I was playing the keys and I wasn't singing at the start of the band. And then eventually it changed to I was writing stuff on the guitar and writing stuff to riffs Joel came up with. And
This
then
is early Rhododendrons.
yeah, this
for
is early
context.
Rhododendrons now. And then I started singing and writing lyrics, and then Joel and I just became the main songwriters for the Rhododendrons, because at the start we all kind of swapped around and all had a go, but then so we started just writing music together and kind of found our own sound, and then I guess that's when we started kind of separating from what the other two members of
Sure.
the band wanted to do.
Yeah. Cool.
I remember one thing was me and Lucy would sometimes test out our songs at open mic nights at Dog with Two Tails, just with 2 guitars.
Yeah.
And one time we were there and Tom was just having a drink and he was on the song. And I knew Tom played drums because I'd met him at the skate park before.
Yeah.
And we'd discussed music taste before, and
Exactly.
it was all pretty adjacent.
Yeah,
He tuned my guitar to the Neverment tuning, started playing Neverment. I was like, let's start a band.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So,
That's so organic.
That was when Rhododendron split up, it was kind of well, we want Tom. We knew that. And then I was going to art school and I knew City slap the bass, play the bass. And I was
I
just
slap a little bit.
and I was like, City, band's broken up. You want to play bass?
Right. Had you been in a band before, Cindy?
Like in high school.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah, with a few of my friends.
So early days.
And then actually with Felix as well.
True, yeah.
Yeah.
My flatmate Felix. Yeah, cool. Awesome.
Sort of. We played a few gigs together, I guess.
Yeah.
And then after that, nah.
Not so much.
No, not really.
So was it a fairly new concept, or not a new concept, but like a different feeling this time around being in a band? Like, I presume you've sort of been doing music of your own sort of in between those 2 points. Is it cool being back in a band setting, or
Yeah,
feel like
definitely.
you're finding
I've never
you fit?
played this many gigs
So-
like back to back.
Yeah, you guys have
before.
been pretty prevalent with shows recently. I've noticed you getting the name out there. It's pretty
definitely.
cool.
So yeah, that's been really cool.
Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, but I mean, love being in band with everyone. And
Yeah, awesome. So
was fun.
would you say collectively you're all pretty much like on the same wavelength? Not to chop and dice the
I think
band
so.
up,
There's
but
definitely like, I feel like Tom and City have a lot of overlapping interests in terms of like
Cool.
more like electronic music.
yeah.
And then like, well, Lucy and Alan is just because they're, well, how did you guys meet? Like,
Yeah, because like Joel and I, when we started recording our EP, we knew that we maybe wanted to try and put some cello into it. And like, because I studied classical piano at university, I'd recently had to do a piano trio as part of my course.
Oh, wow.
And so I had to play like with a violinist and a cellist, and that's how I met Ellen. And then, just because she was like, I just knew her and she was a cellist, I was like, would you be keen to play some cello for our band to record? And I guess initially it was like, we'll just try it out on a few songs and then like kind of see what happens. But then we just like ended up playing on every song. And then it was like, we played at a gig in Christchurch and we played with Ellen, but we hadn't played with Ellen at like our other gigs before, and we really noticed a difference in the sound, like I don't know, like, and in the reaction, like when we had Ellen on the cello, everyone was like really, really positive about, I don't know, everyone was really hyped by that, and we were like, we need you in the
It's a cool
band.
element to have in a band, because I think a lot of, at least what I've seen out of Dunedin, there's not a lot of that, you know, sort of more traditional instruments in a band setting. So it's a pretty exciting part to have of a group like that. Definitely brings another element, so that's really cool.
So then Lucy and Alan have that overlap where they can just like talk in sheet music and notes to each other and like have those like interests and
Yeah.
So
We,
I'm
like,
gonna
play
just
at the
bring that
scale.
mic
Yeah.
plus.
Awesome.
Perfect. No, you're all good. Just want to get the best sound we can. And there it goes. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah,
Wait.
There's definitely a big music overlaps. And then me and Lucy, just like
Yeah.
very big music snobs. And I'm like,
Yeah.
like it's dangerous levels sometimes.
Yeah.
I
I'd say,
guess- Oh, there you go.
I was gonna say, I'd say everyone's on like pretty much on the same page, but just pointing at different parts of the page.
Yeah, for sure.
With their tastes,
Yeah.
like it's all pretty aligned.
That's cool. So when you guys are coming up with a new song, where does it all start? Like, is it all sort of come from your end, or does everyone sort of chip in now? Like, you guys at a point where everyone's sort of contributing ideas, or do you find it sort of just happens as you go along? Like, who sort of gets the ball rolling?
So I think me and Lucy probably, I mean, I would like to kind of transition into a more of a jam kind of thing, but me and Lucy spend like heaps of time together. And a lot of the time that just turns into me like wasting time on the guitar. And then like a lot of the stuff will come like either I make a riff or Lucy makes a riff. We kind of get a loose kind of structure to what, like an idea for how the song might want to sound. And then we'll bring it in.
And see if anyone thinks it's a good idea. And then we might like do some more and like maybe take some ideas from everyone else too. But
And then the song completely changes. Like often
Yeah.
we'll add a complete new part because Tom's like, well, what if we like change the time signature here? And you
Getting
know,
technical.
yeah.
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 What if we made it different?
That's
it
cool.
goes
Though.
like-
Like, I
what if
guess
it goes like this?
the
Dun,
final
dun, dun.
the final result though, like, I guess it's sort of a collective thing in the end. Like, if it does get to that point where everyone sort of contributed, like, is there any one decider of what, like, yes, this is Porpoise or this is not Porpoise, you know?
Even like the songs that we've been coming out with, like post the original ones that Joel and Lucy brought, like from pre-Porpoise, it changes every time. Like the sound progresses every time we write a new song, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, so
I think it's going to keep changing because everyone just goes, well, yeah, that sounds really cool.
yeah.
Let's stick with that.
That's kind of the idea, right? You want it to sort of ever be changing, ever evolve. Like it's hard to sort of try and make the same kind of music over and over, or you know, at least there might not be any enjoyment that comes along with that. You know, you probably find there becomes a sort of a repetition in how everything's formulated, but to be original is to chop and change. So it kind of has to head in that direction anyway. And especially when you've got 5 heads in there sort of trying to figure out what's happening, it's pretty easy to make those things go side to side, right? Yeah. Have you guys found that like during practices and things, like, does it all sort of go pretty swimmingly? Like how do you find you 5 work actually as a band now? Like I know this could be a broad question, but do you think like in a jam session you can sort of translate, like you two, can you sort of translate what it is you're trying to get across pretty easily? Or does it again sort of come because you're saying like it might go to Tom and might come up with a different drum beat, or you might come up with a different bass line CD and it sort of goes direction? Does it all happen pretty quickly, do you think?
Bluewell is probably the one song we have that kind of came out as a product of something like that. Like we kind of finished, John and I kind of wrote this whole song and then we just played it and finished, and then Tom was like, oh, this reminds me of this song, like what if we tried to do something like this? And then he came up with a drum beat and then we all just jammed to that, like kind of started off basing it on something that we'd already written, and then Tom was like, oh, how about you like change this bass line at some point, City? And then we all jammed that and it sounded really good.
Yeah, a lot of our jams are just like 20-minute trance.
Just going on.
No one talks, all feeling it real hardcore. And I guess that's where like a lot of those post-rock or shoegaze elements come from. Because our default jam is just like slow.
Yeah.
When's this gonna end?
Like real hypnotic. Just repeats.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I've never been a part of a jam session, so I can only imagine what it's like to sort of be involved in that. Yeah, it's really crazy. And just how this sort of music comes together still amazes me. Just like the concept of a band, like the bands that have on here are like people that have been in bands that have had on the show. I'm always like, how do you actually like come up with a song? Because it's just so foreign to me to actually be like, because the only experience I've ever had in making music is just on my computer, which is just almost a totally different world. Like it's a different orchestration altogether, and it's also just me doing it. You've got everyone sort of working all together. It's so crazy.
Well, it's like on the computer, it's kind of like making art on the computer, right? Like, like you make art on the computer, it's really hard to kind of get that like sense of like natural error. Like that just happens constantly when you're doing a painting in person. And like when you're on a computer, I feel like in my experience, like you have to know what you want to make, whereas when you well, I don't know, I'm speaking from very limited experience here.
So am I, but
when I'm like, when it's on the guitar, you just could accidentally hit any random note.
Yeah, true.
And that just ends up sounding cool, you know. Like,
That's a big thing. You play something accidentally and you go, oh my god.
Yeah.
Actually, you guys repeat that.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and redo this accident.
That's
and see how it goes.
it makes it way more organic that way, I suppose, as well. It's sort of the unknown of what might happen in one session as opposed to going, right, this is the piano roll and this is all the notes that I can see there in front of me and I'm going to click where I want the things to go. You know, it's a whole nother thing because I have no musical talent, I suppose. I can't play anything, so to me it's just like reading the book of what music is and doing it rather than actually like discovering the music.
It's totally really similar to painting, to be honest, for me in my experience.
And you're still talking physically versus digitally in that sense too.
Just the whole process.
Yeah.
Like it's full of happy accidents.
Yeah.
And sometimes you like spend hours on something and you've just got to be like, this is shit.
Yeah.
What am I doing? And a lot of times like I'll be painting or writing a song and I'll be like, I have nothing left in me to say at all. Like this is going nowhere. And then you push through it and you do one little like mistake and then it's just like, yeah, actually like I'm pretty good. This is really good.
And that's what's really cool about like writing music with other people as well, as opposed to just by yourself. Because if you get stuck and you think there's like nowhere else I can take this idea, and then you get stuck in that loop and it's finished there. Whereas when you've got 4 other people's ideas like coming out bits at a time, you can just build straight on that.
Yeah.
And that's like a fresh bit of inspiration that you can take your stuck idea and turn it around
That's
a bit.
so good. Yeah, and that's probably one of the greatest parts about having a band, right? Is there's other people there to have instant recognition rather than making beats on your laptop and being like, oh yeah, sick, next one, or like try and evolve it somehow. Because you're right, like that loop cycle is dangerous because you can literally get stuck, and especially if you make something and you get it to a point where you're happy with it and you return to it. Again, this is only the only way I can relate to this in the digital realm is that you just listen to sort of the beat again or whatever. And if you listen to it too much without altering anything or sort of starting a new concept within that, it just becomes what the song is, and you can't do anything else to it, because if you change it, then you're like, that doesn't sound right because you've got this idea already stuck there. Yeah. That's an interesting process to hear about how you guys come up with that.
And with writing with other people as opposed to by yourself as well, I always tend to think, like if I've got like a cool riff or a chord progression that I'm writing by myself and every part of the song is up to me, I always get stuck in the why am I doing this particular thing as opposed to literally anything else that could be in there. Why am I choosing that one thing? Whereas when other people bring like bass ideas that can be worked on, that's when better ideas come out.
Definitely.
It's like something you would have never thought of, but can apply your thinking to, and it's something completely different.
Yeah. I find it hard to like come up with stuff by myself, so often it's like Joel will come up with something and I'll kind of just like steal it and just change. And a lot of the time is also how we write things.
That's cool. And it's another thing I could say to that is it must be so gratifying and so like to be able to build an idea immediately with someone else there is something that I've never really had. So any idea that's ever come from just me gets to a point where I can be happy with it and I can live with it, or it does eventually change into something else, but it can also just get so stale because it's your own thing. I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this. Just having work in general that's your own can be hard to even become accustomed to. So if someone else can take an idea that you already think is pretty good, you've got someone else's influence that you're always going to prefer because it's not your own work. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's so much easier to be, you always want to, how can I explain this? You always want to like, typically would want to buy a nicer version of something than you would try to make it, because it's like, it's done for you and it's someone else's work there that you can sort of see. I don't know how to explain it. Hopefully that makes sense to someone. Yeah. Because I find that constantly. I'm like, I can do something to the best of my ability and think, oh, that's great. Like I'm actually doing the work that I like. And then I'll scroll through Instagram and I'll see another painter's painting come up. I'm like, oh fuck, like that's so much better than mine. Like, what am I doing?
It's
I'm back to square one.
You get in a trap like that for sure, and then you get in a trap like copying something like that.
And there's a fine line too.
Fine line between copying and taking influence.
Yeah,
exactly. Like I'll be writing a riff and it's like, no, stop, Joel. That's Black Country New Road. Stop.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Stop, Joel. That's Metallica.
It's probably the most common one.
It's hard though, because like I feel like everything you do is sort of born from influence, right? Like to be able to be make something that's so organic is near impossible, especially these days. Like almost anything that you could think of is there in some way, shape, or form. Even if you write something completely original on a guitar, you've still done it on a guitar. Like you can name thousands of people that have done stuff on a guitar. Like to take it to that sort of the broad sense of it, like there's always something that's been done. So whatever you think of is going to stem from something.
In the broad sense, nothing is original at all.
Yeah, you just kind of have to accept that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably the first step to sort of creating something original, is realizing that it's probably not going to be original, understanding that concept as a whole. Yeah.
I feel like that's something I watched you and Ruben's podcast from 3 Quarter Marathon. So, I feel like that was kind of something you guys were touching on, where you were like, how do you even get these ideas for the songs? How do you get the structures? And he was kind of like, well, like I listen to this kind of music all the time. Like this music like exists and it's like And like that's definitely like we're not really making anything new, and now when we're creating
I
something,
think
like,
the main thing, like the kind of the only way you can make original music now is almost like combining ideas that already exist, but combining them in a way that's not been done before.
Yeah, for sure.
Is kind of like
Definitely. Something I was talking to my last guest, Paul Wiley, you guys probably know Paul, was a similar sort of thing to that, like, I just lost my train of thought. What did you just say? I was just getting around what you just said.
You can't really create anything completely original. You kind of just have to take...
blending two things, right. So we were talking about subgenres of music and the massive subgenres of music that there are, all these elaborate titles for these genres that are in between things. Like that sort of seems to be the way that music ends up being, and people just are able to slap these categories onto music because it's somewhat in between this and that, and I just sort of get so lost and I'm like, what the hell is not hyperpop and hyperpop and all, so I can't even give an example, but there's so many weird
it's
sort of
like,
in-betweens.
you know how like in marketing, right, like there used to be just salt and vinegar chips, ready salted chips and chicken chips, but then like that tail off marketing is actually way more effective, where someone wants cheeseburger flavored chips, and all those people who want like, you know, like
all the
apple pie ones and stuff, like, but you have a way bigger market with all those little trail off ones. So when you have like math rock and you have like post metal, like
exactly,
hardcore stuff, like you have this, I don't know, I feel like that's like the natural way everything kind of ends up going off, because you have like more people who connect with it rather than just like rock and roll, you know,
that's so
hip-hop
true. It's so true.
And with like the unprecedented access to whatever you could want to listen to, you'll find a rabbit hole, you'll go down it.
For sure.
And everyone just diversifies in that way.
Definitely. It's so weird to think how many worlds exist in music, like the amount of again, like categories there are of music. You can come across that thing and be like, wow, this is totally new, and then you find there's a whole audience for this music as well that dress a certain way or live in a certain place or do things in a certain way. You're like, wow.
See, and that's another thing as well, what you were saying about with like a facet of like originality being taking different ideas like from different types of music and putting them together. It's what I find to be I don't know, affecting what I see as the originality of something is where it came from inspirationally. Like there could be like two bands that sound really, really similar, but and write songs that are auditorially similar, but will have different aesthetics and like listen to like themselves personally listen to way different music, and how they've put together that sphere of influence from different sources. Like even if the two products sound the same, one can mean a completely different thing.
I absolutely agree with you on that one. Like context is so like everything in music, and I feel like a lot of people feel like it shouldn't be like it. Like if these two things sound the same or it sounds good, like why does it matter? Like if this one came out in like 1990 and this one came out 2017, it's like it makes the world of difference that one of them came out in 1990, because this is the person who's like fully innovating.
And like even without like the time difference, just like within emo bands, for example, the people who don't listen to emo, you could listen to, I don't know, there's some shit emo out there. there's some great emo, but and to like a non-emo listener, there could be two bands that sound really, really similar. But one band came from like, I don't know, listening to like, they came from the more hardcore side, say, and another band came from the whiny fucking like pop emo side, and end up at a place that sounds similar, but it's I don't know, it's a completely different thing.
Yeah, and same sort of, I guess, general outlook on this style as well, is all sort of within the same thing. So it sort of ends up in this wider genre because everyone's sort of got the same sort of mindset going into it.
Yeah, and like the ego that comes with it as well. Like if people are making this sort of music but taking the piss out of themselves, or if they're really serious, or if it's like just super ironic while they're doing it, it makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though the end product might sound the same.
Definitely.
There's no pattern to that either, because I can love someone who's like super serious about it and super like insecure, but I can also love someone who's like the biggest dick about it and like, they're the fucking best.
Yeah. Well, you look
look
at the amount of people that are like super famous.
You look at the Jesus and Mary chain,
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that is so good.
and they're just like, because we're the best.
That's the people love that. Like there'll be so many people that will look at that and go, oh, God, like, who are these guys? But then a lot of people go like, well, yeah, like you can't dispute it. You know, and some people are really just the greatest and they know it. Like, you know, like a Kanye type would be like, I made the greatest rap album of all time. And it's
And
like,
he probably
yeah,
did.
he kind of did. Like that just happens as well. But also that egotistical thing, like a lot of what I see in a genre of music that I listen to, just in that sort of hip hop world, this sort of new age hip hop pop style music, is that a lot of these kids that are making this music are putting on that personality of like, yeah, I'm the best up and coming rapper, or I'm this and this and that, because it gets attention. Everyone's like, who the hell is this guy? And then they'll either like live up to that or they'll just completely vanish, you know? So it can be something that really helps you in a way to sort of have just that subtle sort of David Bowie-esque, like,
And that's
you know.
that's a huge punk influence as well,
Yeah,
I think. Like
definitely.
within modern rap like
Definitely.
that. Is like with the, I don't know, the ego they have surrounding
The SoundCloud era with all the crazy coloured hair and stuff,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
definitely
yeah,
a punk
yeah.
attitude.
and even like sonically, there's so many like, I don't know, punk and like noise rock elements that come
Yeah.
through, and
Dirty
the newer
808s
stuff.
and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
saturated instruments and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
like real like distorted bass lines and vocals as well.
Yeah.
It's super heavy.
So crazy. And that's like the number one genre in the world right now, is that kind of music. And it's, I think a lot of what boosts that genre of music is internet culture too. Like it's almost memeable music, you know? And that's what everyone is really taking in on social media, is memes and video content like that. That's just so obscure.
And they
it's
all
tied
have
up
their
with it.
like whole thing, their whole aesthetic. Like, oh, this dude's got fucking rainbow colored teeth,
Yeah.
and this dude is half and half here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like everyone is so unique, but there's still a whole to look at, like a whole type of person or genre within that. Like, yes, one guy's colours hair is red and one guy's green, but there's still got coloured hair, you know, like it's all the same sort of thing. That's crazy. So you guys, like I've said before, you guys have been pretty prolific in the scene at the moment. I see you guys' names popping up quite a lot recently. Is that an adjustment for most of you guys to do the whole gig thing? Is that sort of a first for everyone, or are some of you guys used to it, some aren't?
How does it compare to like doing classical stuff like Alan and Lucy?
That's a good question.
I'm like used to doing quite a few concerts sometimes, but like, yeah, obviously sometimes not, like the spaces that they're in and things are quite different, or the contexts, or you know, a lot of concerts you'll just rock up and play and then leave again, whereas like with gigs and stuff there's more of that context and social aspect and
Sure. Yeah.
that kind of thing. But
Typically people more, I guess, like when you're in the classical scene, there's probably a broader and older audience with that as well. So you have a certain type of audience that's there to see, and the difference between a concert and a gig a lot of the time is sort of the sitting or standing thing as well. So you got people that are there to, you know, sort of experience, I guess, the music, and then other people there that are like to be part of the music sort of thing as well. So has that been quite an adjustment for you?
not too bad. I think
You've already
it's
got the sort
definitely
of
a
stage
difference.
presence down, I suppose. So it's just adapting that.
And like I have played some non-classical stuff like here and there in the last wee while, but so it's not totally new. But
Yeah. Cool. That's cool.
Find it a lot easier than playing classical.
so true actually.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, and I find it quite fun too. Like, I think coming from a classical background and always being a classical performer, it's like playing with a band for the first time, it's like, oh, I'm actually enjoying myself while performing, and this is fun. And it's just, I don't know, I think it's kind of like makes it easier to be confident as well, because it's kind of like you have to like deal with a lot of pressure being the only person playing one instrument, so it's like when you've got a band to support you, it doesn't seem as scary.
Yeah, for
I think
sure.
that'll definitely be coming from a piano background.
Yeah.
Like, because I've done a bit of orchestra stuff or that kind of thing. And so it's a different kind of group experience, but you still have that. And like, you know, when I do a solo cello recital at the end of the year, like, well, I've actually got a piano accompanist, so I'm not actually alone for most of the pieces that you do. So it's a bit different there as well.
Yeah.
And when you're playing the classical music, am I right in saying that a lot of what you're performing isn't music that you've written? Or were you writing?
None of it.
Yeah. So that's another huge difference, right? It's like you're playing the music you want to play when you're in a gig, right? You're not just playing something that you've sort of learned, which has obviously gratification to be able to learn something complex that someone else has written, to be able to form that back is pretty gratifying. But obviously why you're enjoying it a lot more is because it's your music, you know, you do what you want, you got your friends around you. It's pretty cool.
So much more relaxed too, eh? Like,
Yeah.
the funny thing is that you can so tell Alan comes from a classical background, because she's always at practice before any of us. I practice at 7, and we get there at like 7:30, and Alan's just been quietly waiting. Like, how long you been here? Oh, not long.
Is there a lot of theory involved in your sort of part of the band as well? Like, are you sort of looking at things structurally? I'm just presuming, to sort of comparing the two genres, or do you come in because you've got sort of the knowledge from playing classical? You find it's pretty easy for you to jam. You just sort of have to know.
Yeah, I'm like not so good at jamming or like kind of having structure to improvisation, because like you can just go off and play whatever, but having that kind of, you know, like when you've got 8 bars or whatever, you've got to have some way to tie it together or make it make sense in that space, or have it link from something else in the music. And so like that kind of side of it, I'm definitely like a bit new to.
Sure.
But yeah, definitely prefer that kind of like, oh, what note was that again? Kind of like.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sometimes I'll help like Ellen come up with cello parts, because like, I mean, I have my guitar parts is often what they tie into a lot. So I'll just like play my guitar part and then I'll like play it on the piano. And because like, I don't know what notes I'm playing on the guitar, but like if I can do it pretty easily by ear on the piano, and then I'm like, okay, I'm playing these notes. And then I'll be like, okay, what notes can go with this? And then I can like kind of translate it into like music.
Yeah.
Theory, be like, okay, maybe you should play like these notes might go well with this because this is a this chord. And
you're quite good at finding what the note is that gives it a good harmony.
Oh, that's so neat.
It's cool.
That's
Picking
really
out the
cool.
melody. So.
It's cool. You can guys sort of help each other out and relate in that way and translate stuff for each other. That's really cool.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just looking at the shape. Like I find guitars quite shape based as well. So like watching, you know, how far Joel's hand's moving up the guitar or whatever. Like as well, if it's something that's a bit more like. You can just follow it.
That's crazy to me. I love hearing about this stuff, because again, it's so foreign. It's like
it's crazy
you can look at someone playing that and like copy it. Like, what?
I have no fucking idea what's going on.
It's so cool. I've seen bands do that, and like I watched my flatmate Felix play in the Jack Berry band for the first time recently. That was in a week, I think. And I could just tell, like, I was watching him the whole time, and he was sort of like, you know, sort of head down, and then he'd look at like what Damon was doing, the lead guy, and sort of look back down. And I wondered how in it he was. And I talked to him afterward, and I said, like, were you ever sort of out of place, or you like, how did you know sort of where you were? And he's like, just look at Damon, what Damon was playing. I was like, what? Really? You just look, because Damon's going like 100 miles an hour, like playing these notes. I'm like, you know where he's at? Like, that's just so crazy. But obviously those guys have like been playing guitar for years and sort of know exactly where it is. But that's just that concept as a whole, especially in the moment like that, is so crazy.
Yeah.
That sounds like more like a session, kind of like a jam scenario.
Yeah.
I feel like when you're playing a gig, it's like you know exactly where you are just because you've played it so many times.
Yeah.
I definitely don't know the notes of the guitar well enough to really look at things. That I don't think I ever used like visual cues like that to kind of keep
for timing, sure. Like for timing,
like
it's
looking
like,
at tone.
and you know, like a nod or a.
And are you relying sort of a lot of that on you, Tom, to sort of create the timing? Like, I feel like a lot of what creates structure in the music.
I follow him a lot.
We lock in real hard.
Yeah, it's kind of key elements to be involved with as well. You want the bass and the
especially like his kick drum.
Yeah,
is like something I follow quite a lot.
Yeah,
just like line up with that, and then I'll be all right.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the key, you want someone who can play the drums in time. No pressure, Tom. Yeah, but what the times I've seen you guys perform, like I didn't really know any of you except for Tom, so I was really like focused on Tom the whole time, and it just did sort of admiration about how well you can keep time.
Tom's
but then again, that's sort of
crazy,
based on how well I think time is sort of in my head as well. But that's crazy. Yeah.
I reckon Tom practices the most out of anyone in the band, because like I always come home and
That's
Tom's
a new development.
Tom's just like playing the drums all day.
Sick.
I'm like, fuck, I play the riffs at practice, and that's it. And Tom's like commits a whole day to it.
Sick.
And I mean, you can tell because it's like in time, it's deadly in time. And then Tom's like, oh, I want to redo this part. This part's not sounding right. Yeah. It's like, what? Like, that sounds mean. Like,
Yeah.
That's good though in its own way. Like for your individuality, Tom, like to be able to commit your own time to doing that. Like if you can constantly sort of say to yourself, no, it can be better. Like you know,
exactly.
you kind of need that. You know, you need that drive. But I guess like in the setting where you've got sort of everyone involved, or you've got sort of time restraints or things you sort of need to get done, you need sort of flexibility amongst you all to be able to sort of do that. But you know, you're sort of taking your talents further, and you're obviously enjoying it what you're doing. So
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
and like
so-
since we all like work, like everyone's ideas work so well together, we have pretty like if I'm gonna go like, oh damn, I want to change this bit, everyone's like, yeah, go for it.
yeah,
Generally,
that's cool.
which is generally,
Does anyone have to put their foot down, be like, no, this is it, this is what we want to do, no changes? So has it ever been like that ever?
sometimes it's only like
sometimes there's
it's
some
a
bits
bit.
that
Yeah, sometimes it's only like, oh, it's a bit difficult for me to concentrate if you're doing this
Sure.
super off time part.
Sure.
So like for when
Yeah.
Lucy's singing, sometimes it's like,
Yeah.
just slow the wackiness down a little
yeah.
bit. But like
and I
other
need, to,
than
I need to
that,
be reined in, otherwise I'll just do some
Yeah.
normally no, but sometimes
It's just tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like I can't fucking concentrate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
that's
mean-
fair enough. Like if there's something that's stopping you from doing what you're doing to contribute, there's got to be some sort of line right to be like, hey, I need a bit of a break.
And
here.
I don't want to ever do anything that's going to detract from the overall sound.
Yeah,
that's
for
like
sure.
that's what being a good drummer is. It's
Yeah.
like knowing like what to play, but also not like what not to play.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
you need to fit the song and the feel of the song rather than just
Yeah.
trying to show off to everyone.
Yeah,
As-
definitely,
As soon as you start trying to do that,
It's exactly the same, no
Yeah.
matter what you're playing as well.
Yeah.
Because definitely, like in practice, I'll be playing around with pedals, and Lucy will just come over and turn my pedal off. Like, that is stupid sound, Joel.
I love it. I love it. That was the answer I was looking for. It's so good.
But it's like you never get hard feelings about it. Sometimes I'm like, wow, this sounded good.
Yeah.
But like you're just like, okay, actually that did sound shit.
Yeah. There's got to be points, eh? Like there's got to be times, and that's sort of why I asked the question at the start, like who's sort of the front runners? Because there's got to be someone somewhere in the group of five that's got to go, hey,
Like Lucy.
guys,
Lucy.
like, this is the idea. Let's stick to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
if Lucy didn't stop us all,
No, what
we'd spend half an hour
Could
just
be a
making,
completely different band.
yeah, making vacuum cleaner sounds. with the guitars.
Sampling anything you can. Eh? That's funny. Well, speaking of influences, where does sort of the idea for what the sound is that you're making sort of come from? And I'm directing this sort of more at you two, Lucy and Joel.
fucking best band of all time, Radiohead.
Debatable.
There's my, I don't know, I got super into Radiohead when I was in like high school.
Yeah.
And that's definitely like, I just more than like the specific music they make, like kind of just like their attitude towards like innovation and
Sure.
guitar and stuff, and how it's super not. I guess the biggest thing that I would say is visible in Porpoise is that like we're not fully in one genre or another. Like we have some really shoegazy songs, we have some post-rocky songs, we have some like poppier math rocky songs, and we and I think that's the thing that I feel like I find influence of them, because you could never say like Radiohead is a shoegaze band or Radiohead is a post-rock band, but they definitely have those songs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think, well, I'm quite into Dunedin sound, so I've just, like, I really like the Verlaines a lot. And I think also because I was going to say before, Joel and I are kind of like almost the most amateur members of the band when it comes to playing instruments. I feel as if Tom and Seti might both be better at guitar than us, to be honest.
I know about that.
Yeah, that's it.
Like,
Not
I don't know.
quite.
Because I only really started making stuff up on the guitar recently as well with the rhododendrons. Like, that was the first time I was kind of properly making stuff up. So I think kind of just having that amateur approach to it and kind of just like figuring it out from what sounds good, which is like really a big part of the Dunedin sound. Like, I guess a lot of those bands, they weren't proper, like, you know, none of them had really played their instruments that much before they got in a band, but then they got in a band together and then they just started making music. So
That tends to be the story amongst people that I've talked to from Dunedin. It's just like, you want to be in a
Yeah.
band? You want to be in a band? Yeah, let's do it. Let's be a band, you know?
Whatever
Yeah,
sounds cool and makes you happy when you play it.
definitely.
I would
That's-
say Dunedin sound's definitely a big influence
Yeah.
on the attitude as well, and even like just like because
it's kind of inevitable, right?
Yeah, and it's so
We're in
gothic.
Dunedin.
Like
Yeah.
the place you're in definitely influences like how the music's made. Like if you think about like other scenes around the world, like the Manchester scene is so like cohesive because it's all coming from this like fucking shit place in England. And like the Dunedin sound scene's so gothic, and it's hard to not make some super dreary gothic shit here.
Yeah, and also sort of like what we were talking about before is we're in Dunedin, we're going to gigs in Dunedin where there's other Dunedin bands. It's sort of inevitable that you would sort of end up somewhere within the
Yeah, you
Dunedin
take
sound.
so many
you know?
cues from like the bands
Exactly.
you play with as well.
Exactly.
yeah, like you hear them doing something and you're like, oh, we kind of want to do something that sounds a bit like that, and
Yeah.
maybe take some influence there.
Yeah.
I think one other place that is kind of a bit of a weird place where we take influence from is like also when we started the band, like, because about our overlapping music tastes, like, because I like did Japanese at high school and I study a bit at university, I got really into Japanese music, and that was kind of actually like my pathway into alternative music was through this alternative band that I found. And
Yeah, that'll open up a few doors.
yeah, and then like I found, and so like I was just reading an interview of this guy in the band, and he was saying about how he loved Radiohead, and he's like, oh, you can make all these sounds with the guitars, and like,
Yeah.
so it's like a shoegaze band, and like I don't know, I just think some of the music we make, and I didn't even like, it wasn't on purpose or anything, but I was just listening to it one day, and I was like, this actually sounds like us,
Yeah.
and so I just think because that was probably the first band that I ever got really into that had a lot of influence on the music that like we make together, and also because that's also a band that's ended up having like influence from Radiohead and shoegaze.
Yeah, it all ties into each
Yeah.
other. Yeah, that's so cool.
But,
That's cool. I think it's important to be able to sort of trace back where your ideas come from, because you can end up in sort of a egotistical sort of drive where you're going, oh yeah, we are, you know, we haven't really thought about anything else. We're just coming from a place of originality, which is frankly
So
bullshit
naive.
a lot of the time.
So
Like it's
naive.
like, no, well, I mean, you know, especially at the age that we are, like we've really been listening to music our whole life. Like the concept as a whole is way too, what's the word I'm looking for? It's out there. It's everywhere, you know. You can't avoid it. Like your inspiration comes from somewhere. And if I can relate to that in what I do, like when I started painting, like there's no way I was just buying a canvas and just going, right, what's going to happen? I was like, oh, this guy's work is sick. I want to do something like that. And trying to replicate. I say replicate because I don't think it was copying, but I was going, well, how is he doing that? How is he getting this result? What tools is he using to do that? And so I'm going, okay, well, it's this, and this, and then try apply it in the same way. And then once you've found how it works, then you can use it to make something else. And that's sort of how I got to where I am now. And I'm sure you guys can relate to that with music. It's sort of
the
like,
exact same
how do
thing as
these guys
playing
make
guitar.
that sound? Yeah, exactly.
Like, if you were never to have played anyone else's songs, say you were like a really skilled guitarist, but not never had learned anyone else's songs, you can put your fingers in places, but like since you don't have that like wealth of knowledge behind you of, oh, this pattern sounds really cool, and what if I put it with something else that I know because I've played for a long time, and that's where you can start taking the basis and working stuff out on top of that and using that as a really like a base point.
It's
for
totally
sure.
like cut and paste and then putting it in, like, and then backspacing it and putting it in your own words is fully like what it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can make people get stuck though, because there are definitely people who can like play lots of like really complicated stuff, but then it doesn't necessarily always mean that they can come up with stuff. And like I think I found that personally a lot for the piano. Like I'm still kind of scared to write stuff on the piano, to be honest, because it's like, I don't know, I've just played so much on it and I don't really know where to start. And it's because also I've played to like a high level. I like want to try make up something to that high level, but that's like impossible to try and like, I don't know, map something like that out. And that's, I don't know. Sometimes I think that influence can kind of almost get in the way a little bit.
For sure. Because, and especially if you're constantly comparing yourself to what it is that's influencing you as well, you're always going to be disappointed because it's never going to be exactly what it's going to be. And the beauty of music, and something I just remembered I was actually going to say before, was regardless of what you're trying to do or what you like and what you're trying to replicate, you might try and like, you know, replicate a Radiohead song or whatever. But you're probably not going to love that song. Like you definitely be in love with a band or a style of music or whatever. But if you were to do it your way, there's still something that you would probably tweak somewhere. So there's individuality with replicating things anyway. I think it's inevitable you're going to end up with something different because you're still putting your spin on it. You know, you're adding something that's your own flair. It's sort of
not enough singing about whales and Radiohead songs.
Not enough girls.
crazy how you end up in the place that you are. And there's probably a lot of things that sort of happen unbeknownst to any of you that's sort of taken the band to where it is. It's sort of things that happen within the unconscious that probably usually stem from jam sessions and things that you sort of, it just sort of naturally evolves because you've got so many people's hands in the pot, you know. It's crazy. So where's Porpoise heading? Do you guys think? Like, what's sort
We're
of the
heading to
next step?
Wellington.
Literally, yeah. Put the plug in, yeah, definitely.
Porpoise's first gig in the North Island.
Oh, true. Sick. That's pretty cool. How did that get hooked up? Are you guys sort of like doing all the organising yourselves? Like,
Yeah.
Had you been reached out to, or had you reached out?
Yeah, we'd been reached out to by this guy who I think knew us from like people at the Trace on. Like people at Trace on Trace had kind of told them about us.
Sick.
And then he hit us up at like the start of the year. And then I decided that maybe we should try organise a tour. So I kind of looked into it a little bit, but everywhere was booked.
Oh dear.
So we're actually just playing like a house gig. We hit that guy up again because he, suggested we do a house gig, and that's what we've got going.
Sick. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like a house gig, as in there's other musicians that are playing house music, or do you
No.
like
Oh no,
at a house?
it's like at a house, yeah.
Just a party.
It's like,
Like a
interesting.
ticketed house party.
Oh,
With two other bands
crazy.
as well. It'll
That's
be awesome.
That sounds
gonna be
pretty
It's
cool.
at my friend's house. It's gonna be sick.
But hopefully we can organise like a proper tour, like at some point. I was kind of looking into one in July, but I think we might just wait until the end of the year, maybe when we've got some new music out that we can promote at the same time, and then like go on a proper tour everywhere.
Definitely, because you guys got an EP coming out soon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be nice to
In
have.
6 days away, eh?
True.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Oh, next week.
5th of April.
Sick.
Yes.
Dude,
That's pretty exciting.
It's been a long time coming.
How many songs?
5.
5.
And has it been in the works sort of from the get go,
Since-
or
We've been sitting on it for ages.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had it since December.
well, that is
Yeah.
quite a while now. What are we?
Yeah.
April? Yeah.
Doesn't feel like that long ago though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started it honestly pretty soon after we formed, because
Yeah.
we formed in September was our first gig, and then basically after that, as soon as like uni was over, we like got into recording, and then
Hopefully that happens again at the end of this year. Like,
Yeah.
I would be so
Album time.
interested in doing an album and like not even have that many more songs in the EP. Just have like fucking 8 tunes.
Yeah.
because the EP is still 25 minutes long with 5 songs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's decent.
Yeah, it's pretty.
yeah.
Has there been
So, yeah.
tracks that you've sort of? I always am curious to see like what an artist decides is EP worthy and what is not. Is there sort of things that you put aside as you go along, or is it sort of like
We
there's
only
this
put
one
one
idea that you're
song.
trying to work towards?
Yeah.
We only put one song aside for that
Yeah.
we had come up with because we just thought it was a bit boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
We
we
haven't,
don't play that anymore.
Like fully developed that one as well.
Nah.
I feel like.
Oh,
Could
okay.
come back one day.
Yeah,
I don't know if it
a part of it.
Yeah.
A part of it,
The
maybe.
Put
end
it in the bank
half.
for now. Yeah, that's cool though. It must be so exciting, I guess, to find, because like I'm sure there's points when you're just sort of jamming and making more music that you come up with something you're like, oh, that's kind of EP worthy, or like, you know, it sounds like it would fit into everything else, and you end up chopping and changing things. Would that be true?
Most of them were just songs like that we already had, Joel and I already had from the Rhododendrons, and then we kind of didn't really have any other songs to choose from, to be honest. We're like, oh, yeah, this is enough to make an EP.
Yeah.
It's still
And-
all pretty cohesive tunes. So.
Yeah.
And I did really like all the songs.
It flows really well.
'Cause it
They all
was-
fit together. Really
To be
nicely.
fair, it was more like the best of the Rhododendrons.
Yeah.
But like also the Rhododendrons that the Rhododendrons couldn't work out. Like it was
Yeah.
like 2 great Rhododendron songs, and then the songs that we just were having trouble with, and these guys just helped us out with.
Sick.
yeah.
Like, and just made them completely different,
Yeah.
way better.
Yeah.
I guess we weren't going to put Blue Whale on it originally. We were kind of thinking about it, and then we were like, oh, maybe we'll just leave it. But then we did decide to record it, but we had to kind of like almost hurriedly like get it all together just before we recorded. That was definitely the most last minute addition.
But it might be like the best track on
Yeah,
that.
I think it's
EP.
my favourite
Like,
one.
it's So, and I mean, we ended up naming it after it. Like,
Yeah.
That's
And-
cool. That's good information to know from someone that's going to go into the EP fresh, to know what song the band likes, because
I
then
think-
having a whole other idea
all
of
of them.
it's going to
Depends
come
on
up.
how they-
yeah, that's
true.
true. Because they all are quite different. I think that's something that I wanted to make sure was like that. All the tracks were quite different, because I it's hard when you try get into a band for the first time. Like I had this, for example, with the Smiths. I listened to the Smiths and I was like, fuck yeah, this is cool, but every song sounds the same. And it didn't take me till like, you know, a year of listening to Smiths where I was like, actually, this is awesome. But like, besides, like it was still like I wanted, and I think what we do really well in the EP, personally, is just like all the songs sound completely different.
Yeah.
But they all like share parts, like
Oh, for
share,
sure.
share themes throughout the song, like little like musical motifs that tie them all together.
Yeah.
And with them all being quite different, they all flow really well, which is really cool.
So it's good to have.
It definitely sounds. It's definitely not a collection of songs. It's definitely a
Yeah.
5-track EP
Yeah,
that that should be listened to as such.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not a lot of people, I think, do that these days. I feel like the way music is consumed
Lot of
or
hits.
even put together is just like banger, 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 rather
Yeah,
than being
'cause-
like an album.
Honestly, it kind of is borderline like concept EP based on like the natural world. Like, because we have like a song called Blue Whale, a song called Kudu, which is a type of antelope, and then a song called Sperm Whale. And like, and there's all different perspectives of the natural world. Like one from one of the animals, one from like fascination of the animal, and one from like actively hunting and like the humans' relationships with animals.
That's
like,
interesting. Okay. So how does that, how do you even put that into like, how would you describe that concept? Like, how do you come up with something that
Well,
fits that?
You just got
desire?
to be.
Is it just within
bad
yourself?
At writing songs about your feelings. And you're just like, well, I'm gonna write about me chasing an antelope. I just cannot.
In the literal sense, it's in the lyrics.
Yeah, Kudu's pretty like to the point with the like how
Sometimes-
it deals with the animal theme, but I think
It can be read into metaphorically as well.
Totally
I
metaphorical.
think I don't. My favorite one I think is Sperm Whale, for like the
For
one
that aspect,
for
yeah.
that aspect, because it's like we wrote it. Joel and I wrote that one together, the lyrics for it, and it's from that like perspective of a whale that's being whaled, but
Like it realizes it's being like followed by a whaling ship,
yeah,
and it's kind of because sperm whales are fucking genius. They're super smart.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's kind of like putting yourself into like being that sperm whale, realizing you're being hunted, realizing you really don't have an escape from these like foreigners in your realm, but also like I was like putting way too heavy like just like were writing about sperm whale, but then Lucy's like, no, I'm going to make the lyrics like it could be from a human's perspective as well. Like,
Well, I think
That's
anything
way
animal
more-
related sort of becomes metaphorical in itself.
Yeah.
You're always going to interpret it as such, and especially when you're looking at something in an art form, you sort of go, "Oh, well, what's the deeper meaning? You know, what is this really about?" You know, no one's going to go, "Oh, yeah, this is a sperm whale." You know, they're gonna go, what does this?
Yeah.
What does this mean
We
to
just
us
tried
humans?
to make it more ambiguous, I think, with
Yeah.
that one. Like,
That's cool. It's an interesting concept. I'm very interested to listen now.
yeah.
I'm glad it's not like a couple months away, because this is cool to talk to you guys and see how it
Yeah.
all sort of comes together. Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's so sick. It's awesome. Awesome. So what? I don't know. I've run out of things to say. I mean, this is great.
Also, just want to thank Peter Maltino.
Oh, that's
yes.
actually what I was going to ask you. Like, who does all of that
did
stuff for you?
such an incredible job.
he's a beast.
He's
Fantastic.
he's loving my life.
Did you guys all get in the studio with him, or did you just sort of send things to him?
Now we're all in there.
Oh, the EP was, when we recorded it, we did it like as a live set as well. So we all played together to
Yeah.
record the songs rather than multi-tracked everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Which
yeah.
I
I
think
just sang afterwards.
And Alan came in
yeah,
afterwards.
which I think really adds to how it sounds.
Definitely.
Because
Oh,
it-
any band wants that, right? You want to
because,
play
like,
as the band.
We'd practice for like a week straight before we went up to the studio.
Yeah.
And I don't know, as compared to like playing, say if it was just me and Seti doing drums and bass and then tracking guitars over the top, you don't get that same feel that you get with everyone playing at once.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like we all lock into each other. And it's-
Definitely.
I don't know, and you get like bleed through from everything into the overheads, and it makes it sound a bit more full.
Sure.
And I don't know, I was really glad we did it that way.
Definitely. Definitely.
It sounds way more organic.
Yeah.
Has way more energy as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like punchier and
So that's what you want. You want
Yeah.
you want everyone. You want that vibe there of everyone, because there's literally core elements from everyone. You know what makes the band
Yeah,
is
and
having everyone there, right?
What I like the most about it is it makes it. It's literally just how we play it, rather than like a really like polished surgical tracking separate parts to get everything perfect and right. We just like start the song, play the song. And
In terms of your individual instrumentation, so like with you, Seti, like if you're playing the bass line, I presume you're running it through different pedals and things to create a certain sound, as you do with most guitars. Is there is that not true?
no.
Not true.
I
Okay,
just
cool. Well, that kind of
straight
answers
into the
question.
amp.
Yeah, sick. Okay, so there's no real like critique from your end as to how the bass sounds, or to sort of go back to you, like who's sort of
I think it's
he's sort of going, I wish I want it to sound a wee bit like this, and get Peter to tweak it this way or that way, or is it sort of like
actually, I showed up there and then there was something wrong with my bass. It's been playing up recently.
yeah?
Well, for a while actually now. And then
Since December.
Oh no,
maybe longer. But,
yeah,
showed up and then he's just like, oh, do you want to use my bass?
yeah.
So I used his bass, which is much better.
Oh right, so it's just instantly gratifying.
Yeah. But
So-
yeah, it did. I might need to get a new bass and new pickups or something
Yeah,
like that.
it's funny when you pick up someone else's vice, you know, and you're like, oh wow, this is what it either should be like, or like, oh, this is how it can be different, because you can get really accustomed to the one thing, and you make adaptations to suit the thing that you have, you know, and the problems as well. You go, okay, well, I have to deal with this, so I do this, and then you go, oh wow, it's nice to have this back again, or whatever aspect it was about the instrument that you were, you know, trying to get. So is that pretty commonplace with bass? Like, is it typically all pretty raw, like when you're playing and recording?
Well, for
Or is that
me,
just sort of
it
your
is.
yeah?
I've never really messed with pedals with bass before, but it's definitely something I want to
But
get.
it's a thing. I haven't just gone
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
the limb.
Yeah.
We did do a bit of, in a few of the songs, we did a bit of post-processing on the bass to give it a bit of distortion.
Sure.
A bit extra
Yeah.
grunt.
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm thinking. Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Because I know.
Aid the dynamics a bit.
Yeah, for sure. And so I guess I can sort of probably ask everyone that question, is that when you're playing your instrument, when you're recording, is it sort of on your own terms to decide how you're going to distort or do whatever to that instrument, or is that sort of coming back to one person saying, oh, we don't want it sounding like this, we want it
With
like
our
that?
type of music that we play, like the pedals you use and the effects you use is a part of the songwriting.
Yes.
So like,
Yeah, I
We were
guess.
sounding like how we wanted to sound before we went into recording. So there wasn't really much to change.
No.
In terms of mixing and stuff, if any of us had any suggestion, we just sing out. And everyone's in the room. We can all weigh in on the idea, and then Pete works his magic and goes, "How does this sound?"
Yeah.
And everyone goes, more of this, less of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. We also did a bunch of like acoustic guitar overdubbing
oh right,
in some of the songs, like just to kind of, I don't know, beef up the sound a bit, I guess.
Sure.
And like some of the guitars we would double track as well, like just to kind of bring out either the like guitar melody a bit more or like have it be a bit clearer and stuff like that.
So overdubbing, for someone that doesn't know, is
we just like do another track of it, so just have two
right. Just
different
the same
ones.
thing.
record it
Yeah.
at the top.
Okay,
like
sure.
example, like for Kudu and Spinwheel, I used like 4 distorted guitar tracks
Oh,
over
wow.
the top.
Yeah.
Just so it sounded.
Was it really
Huge.
that many?
For I think so.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, I
Manic.
played that Kudu riff 4 times.
And we had
Distorted guitar.
and with the
And so-
acoustic guitar.
Yeah, and so they're all playing over top of each other. So when it comes in, it's just like fucking
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
But they're really low down though, so like even though the acoustic guitar is there, it's not necessarily always that audible. And that's kind of what we wanted to do, is just, I don't know, just have a really like full sound. And I guess that's where the cello came in as well, is like just kind of, yeah, because we did some like Alan played some cello lines twice, or like did harmonies with the cello to kind of almost like replicate a little string orchestra.
Sure. So what's recording the cello like? Like, was Peter sort of like, oh god, or was it pretty sort of
He
easy
was
to
pretty
find?
excited, I think.
Yeah,
I
cool.
think it was his first time recording cello.
So-
And so he just kind of stuck a mic in front of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was really happy with how it sounds because, I don't know, I used to play in a school jazz band and
Yeah.
they kind of stick a mic in front and you never hear yourself.
Sure.
I'm probably glad I couldn't hear myself, like listening back to some of the like recordings and stuff. But like, yeah, and you don't have, it's interesting, like even the different gigs and stuff we've done, you don't really have control over what kind of aspects of the cello sound they're coming across.
Sure.
But like,
Yeah.
yeah, when we're up in the studios, I was like, yep, that's cool. That sounds like a cello, like, you know, so it was
yeah,
really cool.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's cool to have that feedback, right? If someone actually have it played back to you and be like, this is what you're doing, this is what you're not doing. It's like we were
Yeah.
talking about before we started this. It's like listening to your own voice back. It's like, oh, that's what I do, that's what I don't do, sort of thing. And you can sort of amend things if need be, or come to grips with something that it is you're doing in that procedure, which is pretty cool. And I guess like, yeah, I don't know. It's again, it's so cool to have a cello like involved. It's just so unique, and I think that's what differentiates you guys from a lot of people that are in this sort of setting. It's like you've got that other element, so it's pretty cool to be involved.
I think
in
we
that
want
way.
more. Right?
Yeah,
They're like
Get
it's
some
kind of
horns.
it's kind of a thing that's happening right now. I think in kind of like this like post rock setting, or like, you know, this alternative rock setting where like like horns and strings is becoming way more commonplace. Like I'm really into this band right now called Black Country New Road, and they have like a violin player, a piano player, and like a classically trained saxophone player,
sick.
as well as 2
Yeah.
guitarists and a drummer. And it's like, and I know in Wellington there's a couple bands like Queen's Cup.
Queen's Cup, yeah.
They have like 8 members in it,
Crazy.
and it's kind of this little like genre that's kind of popping up,
Yeah.
where you have all these like more classical instruments, and you have this
Definitely,
big band
definitely.
jazz feeling.
Like orchestral sort of post.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like,
I mean, the more the merrier, really, right? Like when it
Exactly,
comes to
until-
harmonies and
until
things,
you're
like, the more you
organizing
get.
practice,
Definitely.
or like,
definitely.
hey, when
really
can you
hard
guys go
enough.
on tour?
Yeah.
You guys want to play a gig this weekend?
I look
Five
at
out of 8 members
the
are-
yeah, I look at the other Dunedin band, Blue Cheese, and how they orchestrate all of themselves. I think there's 9 members. It's like, good God, like how are you all available at any one time to put something together? It's crazy. They're doing some cool stuff. Very
I
sort
don't
of
know how
similar
you would
thing.
do that. Like,
Yeah.
I think their lineup is fairly fluid as well.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. They can
So
chop and
it's-
change. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's,
I imagine their kind of creative process is not as like
Yeah. It's just kinda like,
constrict as ours.
let's go, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess like even if you're missing a couple of things or elements to the music, there's probably already sort of a core structure there. It doesn't matter if you lost one or two, because they might just bring an extra oomph to something so you're just layering and layering, so you can strip it back enough. Whereas if you've only got, say, two to four band members, it's like you're missing one. Not a lot there to work with afterward. Yeah, so that's cool. Awesome. Yeah, crazy. I've run out of questions like this in a good way. Like, we've sort of covered everything I want to talk to you guys about. This is really cool. So looking forward to your EP release. This sounds like it's going to be really cool. You guys are all pretty happy with how it's sounding. Where can we listen to that when it comes out?
Everywhere.
Everywhere?
Yeah, everywhere.
Spotify, YouTube.
Spotify, Bandcamp, YouTube,
Sick.
Apple Music.
Awesome.
Tidal.
If you're on his Tidal, go to Tidal. Awesome. Oh, well, thanks for coming, guys. This was really cool. I really enjoyed the dynamic of having 6 people in the room. It's a good flow. Good. So I appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you.
We look forward to your EP release. Again, thanks for coming on. This is brilliant. Cheers, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See ya.
Cool. Awesome, guys. Well done. That was fun.
That was really,
was really
that
good.
was nice.
Yeah, what about that? That's a tight hour. That's good. Solid.
Was that an hour?
Yeah.
Oh.
Home Audio Entertainment.
9016 Radio.
The show for artists of all kinds.
Sit down and relax. Enjoy the music.